Hello, friends. How are we doing today? We're going to continue working on TODO app a little bit. Sorry, in my throat. Thing stuck. We are, as maybe you can gather from the title, going to work on the files part of the TODO app. We had gotten it working with like one, but we want to have many, and that is a little bit more involved. We do still want to hook up WebSockets. That's probably going to end up happening on another stream. And next week I think I want to do Laurel. I think we're going to do the local first stuff. Switch back to that for a moment. But with the WebSockets, I want to get that hooked up to OBS, which is my streaming software to grab timestamps. That's probably the biggest reason for me to do that. But in the meantime, even just like a timestamp would probably be fine. So I think we'll work through getting it set up and interacting with multiple files and being able to manage multiple files. Which might get a little bit complex with like persisting and whatnot, but we'll work through it. And after we get that done, then we'll start implementing at least timestamps. Then when we get to the point where we're putting in WebSockets, we could just swap out that value that we're dumping in there. So the little logic that we need to do to get it in place, we can do potentially today. Now, I guess a note with the WebSockets, the reason that I'm kind of pushing that off a little bit is we're discussing how it makes the most sense to put within StarFX. And we have ways to do it. We can drop it in right now, and I've got snippets that we could probably copy and paste and would work. But some of it is like, it would be nice to have a generic or specific API for this within StarFX. So we're sort of just like talking through and exploring the paths that would make sense to do that. And if we don't get it squared away, then in 2 weeks we'll do some copying and pasting of snippets that we made, and just get it hooked up at least. And we can always swap out for what feels like potentially a better API. So now that we got all that out of the way, Darth Buddha, good to see you. Good to see you. Trading YouTube. Yeah, I'm sure the markets are just all sorts of weird right now with the inauguration was yesterday, right? For the president of the United States. So I guess let's just jump in. We're gonna pull up what we had. I'm going to switch over to this button, and boop. All right. Open up this, up and down. Yeah, I believe it. I'm a big fan of, I mean, on the side, I'm working on a finance app, so it's pretty clear that I have like at least a passing interest in finances. Most of my investing though is try to do it sort of dollar cost averaging and mostly index funds, because the time that I personally want to invest feels better spent in increasing my income. So the things that I invest in are a little bit more conservative, but what I can do with what capital I have and just chuck it in there and not worry about it. Intel? Oh, Intel went up. Interesting. They've been having a rough time lately with. Now this is a little bit more compute, so I don't feel bad talking about this, but Intel's had a rough time with their past couple of CPUs. Um, they had some pretty glaring issues that needed resolving. But Intel Arc, their graphics card, kind of neat. Honestly, like I'm happy that they're pushing into that part of the market because um the it's not low end as in like bad GPUs, but low end as in the cost to buy them. Like the buy-in cost has just gotten so high with Nvidia on a ride of all the things that need GPUs. And just something that can do everything else that doesn't need to be super powerful for AI is kind of nice. I mean, index, better to pick sectors. I mean, yes and no. The more like picky you get, the more picky as in like if you'd pick in a specific sector, now you're um there's so much that's based on speculation. And I mean, theoretically insider trading is illegal, but like let's be real. The So I mean I kind of just diversify. I've got broad index funds, some very broad index funds. I've got some international. I've got some I mean it's hard to ignore tech. Yeah. The Nvidia Nvidia Trump will push Nvidia to merge with Intel. I don't see any way that's ever going to happen. Both of those companies are just they control everything. There's just no way. And half of what Trump has done isn't actually technically legal anyways, so yeah, so I don't know. I've got a smattering of different sectors and indexes, and um the some things I have more aggressive in specific sectors. Some things I have a little bit more conservative, and they're all sort of directed based off of how long I'm expecting to stay in each of these, and what I'm expecting that money to eventually do. So yeah, I don't know. All right, this. So we want to do. I guess I should probably push up some code here. We did a bunch of work last week, and I didn't actually open up a PR. I swear, like Microsoft always releases an update for Windows on Tuesdays, and then I don't get around to actually saving or like pushing up a PR because I get done streaming and I immediately go into work. And then oh come on, computer, my computer locked up. Um, what was I saying? Oh, I don't end up actually pushing it up, and then my computer just decides to update itself because Microsoft. Um, that's it's lovely. Why? How did I do that? That seems questionable. Yeah, I mean, honestly, with investing, like the the when you get into real big money, like VC money, the way they make substantially more money is by um, investing very aggressively. So using like not saying YC is a good model for any of this, but using numbers and historical data from YC, it's something like what 1 to 3% of their portfolio actually makes a return that's positive, or maybe it's more like 10% is positive, and then like 1 or 2 or 3% is like the unicorn that they're looking for, and that couple percent covers all those other investments. So unless you're investing like huge money, like those kinds of returns are just outside of the realm for most folks. So the best you can do is invest in the stuff you know, or do index funds, in my opinion. So I mean, tech is a good one, because if you're watching this, you probably have some involvement in tech. So you probably know more things than at least some of the folk investing in this stuff. But then you also get into at some point you cross over the market is very hard, and it's not under your control, and there's a lot of emotion driving it as well. All of those things make for it being very difficult to actually consistently get a return. It's something like, so fund managers, if you invest in a managed mutual fund, it's like, again, I mean, we're looking at these numbers again. 2% or something actually beat the just generic index funds. Generic index funds plus their fee. So either you're just doing it all yourself and figuring it out all yourself, or you're paying somebody to figure it out for you. But you're basically picking in the same way that VC fund with, millions and billions to throw around are doing. So how lucky do you think you are? I mean, I'm not saying any of it's wrong to do, like it's your money. But just understand that at some point you're gambling and or speculating in any of these markets, and allocate your funds appropriately. I don't have a problem with people going to the casino, just as long as it doesn't destroy literally all of their other welfare. If you're using it like entertainment money, then more power to you. The problem with day trading is taxes. So, like I said, I am perfectly comfortable spending more time on this kind of stuff because I enjoy it just as much as I would trading, if not more. And the money I get from this hopefully continues to go up, like investing in my career effectively, and then using that as a way to throw money elsewhere. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, you can see that sentiment coming through in real estate prices. Houses and apartments have moved away from being, they're not for people to live in anymore. It's not a public good, as it were. It's now an investment. That's why prices are just bonkers. So the numbers say that, yes. I kind of wish it wasn't that way though, because I want people to be able to afford to have a house if they so choose. Yeah. Yeah, it's real big. It's real big. Okay. Let's cut a new branch, and we are going to I think I can probably push this up, or at least drop a commit. We are going to call it, what do we call it? Swap to file basis. Sounds good, right? Yeah, that's the worst part is houses have gotten outside of the point where like most folks can actually afford them. The part of the reason so I've actually like switched careers. This is my second career. And part of the reason I did that is I knew I could do well here. I had a strong background in it because I'd been doing it as um, not my normal job description, but also like on the side for fun for like 10 years or something. I don't know, what are 2025? I don't know, something like that. And I just I didn't dislike my previous career, but the money I could make in tech was just so much more advantageous. And I enjoyed it just as much, if not more. And I was already doing programming and tech stuff at both my previous jobs. So why not I just, make it official and actually get paid for that work? um, so I'm fortunate to be in this position and being able to work remote so I can take advantage of prices on houses that are not the bonker east or west coast kind of stuff. Um, so I'm happy with what I am able to do with what I've been given. And I wish there was a way we could make it better for other folks. You live in a super cheap area, yeah. I mean, honestly, I lived in I lived in downtown Milwaukee for a decade. I like living in a city, and I can see the appeal of like living in New York or something like that. It's just it's becoming untenable. It's unfortunate. All right. So we've got a new branch. I'm going to make this a little less large. Corn cows and Amish, Pennsylvania. That sounds very much like. Let's see. Um, Pittsburgh. I mean, you don't have to tell me, but that's what I'm going to think now. Oh, in New York. Ah, way up there. Okay. Um, like Niagara Falls up there, or like trying to think of my New York geography. Malone. It's like northeast, right? Trying to think of the big city over there. I did a lot of traveling in my first job out of college, so um, I like to think that I'm at least somewhat cultured. uh, I'd certainly try my best. All right. So I guess we just say us. We're just gonna go boom and go commit and say use a single file for to do. Ah, nice. 45 minutes. Yeah. Montreal's nice too. It's different enough, but not super far away from it. It feels different enough, like if you would live in the U.S. and you go to Europe. Like, if there's just enough differences between how folks live that like you can feel it. Like culture shock is like a thing. And I feel like Montreal is enough of that actually now that, or enough of that you can have those experiences without needing to fly across the whole ocean. Hey G2, good to see you. Ukraine, nice. Was that a like an educational, like through school or something? All right. Interesting. Okay. Nice. Nice. Haven't been to Ukraine. Um, I'm I'm all for more traveling, but uh, well, I feel like COVID really like goofed that up for my family. And then we had little kids that all just made things more difficult. And now paying for 4 flights is it's some big change to fly anywhere. It was a little bit easier when it was just my wife and I. We could just pick a place and go. All right. So we've got a G2. I missed it. Sorry. Boom. Nice. That sounds tricky though. I don't know. Anything with passwords is like I'm fine letting one password just deal with that for me. I I mean, granted, I say that as somebody also working on a finance app, which has both dates and currencies international for both potentially. Oh, I mean, I've got the stuff wired up for it, but it's not like exposed super well yet. Um, I mean, I guess we take on the things that we're interested in. Nice. No, your English is good, G2. Don't worry about it. I mean, honestly, like at this point, my personal opinion, never apologize for being poor at English. I have spoken with or interacted with folks that claim they're bad at English, but their English is so far superior to other folks that I know that are like that's their only language. uh we all just do the best we can do, so don't worry about it. Communication is difficult in any language, but it's especially more difficult when it's not your native language. Google Translate. Nice. Shh, Google. It's okay. I'm not talking to you. Russian is bad. I don't. I know a little bit of German. My kiddo is learning Spanish in school, so I'm picking up more and more of that. And I've been to I was gonna say South America, but actually it's not. Central America, um, twice, and I've picked up some Spanish there. So, all right. So I guess we need to figure out where our um sort of that like abstraction or that point where we're going to um wire up the ability to handle multiple files, like where that logic lies. And we have our thunks which are operating those. They don't have, but like part of what we did last time is we wired up star effects, and star effects allows us to like tighten up our abstractions a little bit, and these are all very much just operating on this piece of state that they care about, and like that's it. And we can down the line, since it's sort of a like express middleware kind of it feels like a express middleware, we're able to I think we put it within our setup here. Yes, we wrote a Tauri file adapter, which this is writing and reading the file content. So right now we've got JSON. And honestly, I'm okay with JSON for the moment, at least. Tauri states in a coordinator module. Yeah, I think so. This is very much just like we've got literally the file name hard coded. Like functionally, I don't think anybody working with this library has done this yet. All of the setups that I've seen that are working with the persister are operating on like a single piece of state, and it's being saved out and loaded at the appropriate times. That's what we're doing now. But what we're kind of talking about here is I want multiple files. So I'm potentially saving this out in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different areas. So how do we handle that? How do we handle that? Do you like this? It is I kind of like this abstraction. Oh, you're between Tauri V1 and V2. Honestly, like the jump in JavaScript APIs for V2 is huge. Once we got to the point where we were on like V2 alpha, I think all of my streams have been on V2. I haven't looked at V1 for a long time. You're working on a streams coordinator right now? Now that you got the actual streaming to Coinbase. So that would be streaming 2? Functionality is working perfectly as you want it to. Nice. I do know some folks working on apps that are still on V1. Like it's fine. Hopefully, I think something that I would like to see from Tauri is maybe not for V3, but V3 and onwards. The stability in the APIs, I think, is going to become more important as folks are building projects on and maintaining them for longer periods of time. The value in jumping from V1 to V2 is high right now, which encourages folks to put in that effort to migrate to V2. Hopefully that effort is low, but we want it to continue to be low so folks can update. And one of the ways of doing that is just avoiding breaking changes, basically. You're getting live trades data streamed to your app. Oh, okay. This way. Streaming in, not out. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. We've got a I guess I've got that hooked up in the finance, my Finatter, the finance app as well. That's working with Superbase, which has a WebSockets implementation. All right, so I mean, honestly, like this is we're calling get item, set item, and remove item, right? Now, what that is doing is it's built on top of a create persister, and create persister is doing some work, and we're adding it in the middleware stack. This is in some ways similar to this tasks. The running tasks in parallel is a little bit more of a generic ongoing function. So that generic ongoing function is going to do work. The middleware here is an ongoing function, but it's part of the middleware in which when we do an action, all the stuff in our middleware get called D3? Yeah, nice. I mean, honestly, I mean, I'm biased now because I know D3 JS decently well. But when I started this. I mean, but like part of the me learning web tech was because I wanted to work on that project. Um, I guess I might as well. While I'm talking about it, I'll pull it up here. Um, I think I started on this concept in 2011. It took a few years to get good enough with things to actually like push stuff up and have it living on the internet, and figure out GitHub and such. I think the first commits that I had made towards this goal was in like 2012, and that's around when I pulled in D3JS. So like all these other chart libraries that are separate from or built on top of the D3JS, they just didn't exist at that point. So I was like, D3JS is like the way to do charts. Time to learn D3JS. And that was not an insignificant amount of effort. Yeah. If you're interested, check it out. It's all open source. I've got a Discord too. So the caveat is I've got the libraries and I've got stuff in place to be able to do international, both dates, calendars, and currency. But for just being able to ship something, there's a couple places where I just have like the $sign or whatnot, like the USD $sign hard coded. So a little bit more work, a little bit more swapping, and we should be able to handle international. If that's something you're interested in, check it out. And I would always appreciate folks jumping in and helping out with that stuff that's going to be of benefit to them. You don't want to pay $2,000 for a bookmark when you can build it better. Nice, Darth. Okay. We back to this. The persister that we're doing is going to get called every time we do an action, which lines up well for something like a persister because that needs to act, or it operates off that signal of an action executing. So when something in the action happens, we can then do something with that change. So we're using the create persister with our own adapter, of which it has got this get item, set item, and remove item. So if we look at which one was it? I guess it's the persist store. Yeah, we got a to-do item here. Create custom persist store middleware to save partial state. I think this is the bit that we're going to have to do. If we want to get this rolling, I think we're going to have to do this. So rather than using this default function, I think we make our own custom one of those, which shouldn't be too bad. Because this is we're operating on. So once we get into the middleware stack, it's just something that gets called on every action. Persist store middleware is expecting a persister that has the get item, set item, remove item. So because it has that built-in expectation, we could try to operate underneath, like within that expectation, but honestly, it might be easier just to wire up our own right quick. because all this is doing is, this is very much like an action. That's what I really have been enjoying about star effects is there's kind of two pieces. There's effection, which is again a library that my employer has been working on for some time, and effection allows you very strong control over flow and inherently the state, so that we can do lots of things in parallel and not have zombie processes or lose control of it. And it ends up working really well for this situation because we have it works well with generators and Redux Saga because the way it deals with asynchronous versus synchronous. And then what Star Effects is bringing on top is kind of just a big middleware handler, which then works with pieces of Redux, like that ecosystem. So it's sort of like a spiritual successor to Redux Saga. So you boil it down to its pieces, and it's kind of just a bunch of tests or middleware, which means you can continue dropping lower and lower in the stack until you get to the point where it makes sense to implement it. You already talked to a few data providers. You will make a financial API store so people can get data and you can get a cut with a few clicks. So a couple side thoughts to that. If you're trying to get personal financial history, there's two big companies that sort of gatekeep all of that, which make much of the financial, personal finance sector using those APIs untenable. I feel like I'm using that word a lot here. Because it's expensive. And folks doing personal finance don't really want to pay for that. If you're doing trading data, that might be a little bit more, you can get more interest in that because people are doing it to make money. But that being said, there's a synth finance by the folks working on maybe finance app. I'm not sure what their domain is offhand, but they've got a API written, and that lets you get stock data, I believe. I'm not sure what else. Something to look at though. Not saying you need to use it or whatnot, but so you are aware. All right, now our persist store middleware is taking these inputs. We get the allow list, adapter key, transform, and what it's doing then is taking the full state after we have operated on it. So all of the middlewares run, and then it calls next for all the middlewares, and then it finishes off the function. So once we call yield next, our state has been updated. So this will be the newly updated state. There's this transform function. If we're doing an actual transform, then it will do that. Otherwise, it doesn't. State just stays the same. This will specifically only save items that are in your allow list if you've specified it. Otherwise, it's going to just set the state of the thing. So the reason I'm thinking we swap this out is because we can then call the set item on specific subsets of the data. We will know what file we're operating on. This function will be changing data on a specific file. We'd be able to do an adapter.set item for that specific file. So that being said, what does get a little tricky is we can do this. It'll allow us to save out to files, but the rehydrating, the getting back, how do we know? We need existing state that says these are the files that we're currently tracking. If we're tracking these files, then we want to potentially load that state. That's the bit that makes this persist store middleware feel a little bit awkward, because we don't actually need to load all of those things into state in theory. Can you add a flag to your files? If I'm understanding that correctly, in some way be able to like identify them, and then we'd have to search every time, right? So like we load and we do a search on the file system for files with a flag. I think this is potentially the better option. We have ways to save state already. I think that's the way to go. I hesitate to bring back in the store, the Tauri store API, but it might be the way to go, because we'll have a rehydrate function, which and we can pass our own. So this will be persisted state. Isn't there a oh, there's a reconciler. Yeah, G2, go for it. Feel free to ask your question. In general, I think of these streams as more experimental and a little bit like behind the scenes. So these are things that I want to explore, learn about, and you're kind of enjoying the ride along with me. I want to make more videos, and I suspect that content or things that we go through in these streams will end up making it into those videos. In the Windows environment, the maximize, minimize buttons in the custom window header work fine. But Mac, when you click on them, they become very slow and crash after a while. I suspect that is it. So this is buttons in the custom window header work fine. So, do you have Windows decorations turned on? That would probably be my first question. And sort of an aside to that, you can give configurations specific to environments. So I suspect it is not uncommon if you're doing anything at all special with Windows, you potentially have a Windows like a Windows Tauri configuration file and then a Mac Tauri configuration file. Okay, so you have window decorations turned off and you're clicking a button in your UI, and then that's acting on the app and closing it out. And yeah, I think this would be the bit that I would keep in mind. If you want entirely custom, like I think you can make that work. But I want to say the overlay header in Mac is probably going to be the way to go. And that might require you to have multiple configuration files. You don't need the full file though. They get merged together. So where's my, so like I have a Tauri.configuration.json. you can have one for Mac that just specifies the little different pieces for your Mac app. There's also let's actually, I think I can pull it up real quick here. I would check out this. There, we also played around with one on stream. Where's my window here? We played around with one on stream. I don't know if it's continuing to see updates. It seemed like they, whoop. Did I click I clicked the copy button. That's kind of hilarious. Copy the link. This. I haven't actually tried it yet, but what they're doing here seems to be in line with what I would care about and want to use. I suspect that I'm going to end up pulling this in somewhere. I don't know that you'll actually see this in this app that we're working on right now, but I'll check this out. So part of it is check this out because you might just want to use this, but also you can see how they're solving stuff. They've got they do some work with like in the setup, and you can see overlay title bar, I believe for, and they got a couple notes here. I don't think they have a Linux or the person, like the main person working on this, Sid. I think they said they only have a Mac. Or they only have a Windows. I don't remember. So it's not going to be a perfect example, but between the things that Darth Buddha shared and this, hopefully that steers you in the right direction. Yeah, there's a showcase channel. And if you're at all interested in subscribing, I need to not just like drag stuff over. Yeah, go in the Discord if you are interested in that sort of interaction. And there's a showcase channel, and in there I've got a long thread that I bump every time I stream, if I try to remember. But nice, cool. So if we do this persist, go away. Shh. If we do this persist store middleware, we do our own custom one. We can get the current state. We could, in theory, just write it out to every file. This also will show us, I think, what state is changing. So we could do something like we could only we could do the call this set item on only the file that's changed. There is this key. So the other bit too, we've got a Tauri file persister, right? It's a key and it has an adapter, and then yeah, allow list, I guess. It feels like it might be a little bit of work to wire this up, because we're gonna have to like search through state and whatnot. Is it cursed to have a persist store middleware per file? Probably, because we're doing a rehydrate, so probably. I'm seriously considering it though. Because we can potentially get that state or hold that state outside of star effects until the thing loads. It's going to get wonky though when we're adding or removing. Yeah, so you need an index of some type to store the data. So like we have a store in memory, we have files that we're writing out to, and then we have potentially the state in the web view or within Tauri. So like we could use the store plugin, and that would let us hold state like outside of what StarFX is thinking about. I mean, yeah, we're basically making a database. Yeah, it's just I mean, at the end of the day, a database is structured data, right? And it's built in a way that is intended to scale to large amounts. Like we could use SQLite here, and it would work just as well. The reason I'm kind of avoiding it and using files is because the thing that I don't want to have to like spin up something to read a SQLite database every time I want to act on the data. I want to be able to, it just happens to work as I'm interacting with the app, and then it gives me something to copy and paste and or use after the fact. So I guess what we do is just it is going to call set item every time. We could think like a database, don't use one. It's calling set item with the state. So here we're going to get key and state. So we'll have the full state. Are we going to know what changed? We don't really have an indication of what changed. So if we can get some indication of what changed, or we could theoretically just write it out to every file every time. Yeah, I'm not huge on that, but like it might just be fine for now. In here, we could just do set item where it's actually just writing out to every file. But then that pulling the state back is still kind of a pain because we're going to be doing a get item. We don't actually use anything from this. This get item is going to be what's called when we load in is calling rehydrate, and the rehydrate is what's calling get item. Key kind of matters because it's something to differentiate, but like it's just this. So it's not actually useful for our setup because we don't really have a whole ton of these middlewares. And I mean, in theory, we could return a combined state by just opening up all these files. What if you change the name of the file and prefix it? Then use the prefix as a code. I mean, so I guess there's two bits to this. Do we want it to discover files? And do we want it, we want to be able to handle multiple files. So the question is going to be, do we do that via discovery or some state? So I think if we put a prefix on the file name, that would be a way to handle discovery. I don't think I care about that, honestly, because like the way I'm doing my folder structure, like it's just a date name. And it's going to be, I mean, right now I've got a folder called recordings and then next, and then I dump it in that folder. I also have so every time we do a stream, I spin up a new one of these folders. Oh, wrong. I'm in Mac world still. Go back. Are we actually pause? No, I'm definitely in Windows. What buttons am I pressing then? I've got a switch on my keyboard that allows me to do swap between a Mac keyboard and a Windows keyboard. So that the keys and the inputs that the keys return change slightly. So I don't know, we'll call it past. This is effectively what my previous streams will look like. I have a past folder, and then I've got the date. And then, we could just dump the file in there. And I don't even actually need a do it as name. So we could always just discover this one in next and assume that we need to create it if it doesn't exist. And then all of the past ones, we could just, I don't think it's worth trying to discover them. I think it is, I think we store the state somewhere. Thanks, G2. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully you make some headway with the minimize, maximize stuff. Good luck. All right, now, when we're calling setup store, we're giving it an input. So in theory, we can have code run before this setup store, right? And this setup store is going to, it is synchronous. This setup store is going to then execute this stuff. So in theory, we could have state somewhere that then returns the list of files that we care about. If we do that, what would that look like? Because we've got a main which calls store. So this is all being executed and run prior to our app even mounting. And technically, I think this is, it says render void, so I guess it's synchronous. I thought it was asynchronous for a second there. Here we're doing an await. We do have top level await because we're in the browser. So how do we know what files we care about? There must be some sort of criteria. That is the question, isn't it? Honestly, like I feel like maybe we just do a file. I don't love that though. We could do the store plugin. I mean, we could do local storage too. Okay. What? Like local storage would be fine because here's the deal. If we have no state whatsoever, we can assume that we have a folder. We have like a root folder. This is the place where you're always going to expect a file. And we'll have to abstract this out to where somebody can give it a location. Because like these are kind of hard coded with the expectation that you're using the same folder structure. Why do you care about some and not others? So this is a to-do list. We're going to make the to-do list either leading up to or while streaming. I'm going to put down a list of items. We're going to check them off as we go. So hopefully we have some like semblance of, like things that we talk about or will talk about. But then also it's going to grab the timestamps, which will be nice for uploading to the VOD after it's complete. Now, once it's complete, it's kind of nice to like go back and look at the last couple and see what TODO items we didn't complete. But honestly, like after the stream has been done for 2, 3, 4 weeks, I don't care about it anymore. If I need to, I can just pull up the file that's been saved. But I don't really need to see it in the UI after that point. So it would be more for the, like if I loaded the last 4 that we worked on, it would be nice to click back and see what items we didn't finish or we did finish in the previous couple of streams. Yeah, so that, like there's sort of this inherent weighted value relative to date. And I think that's probably reasonably applicable to most folks that would use this. So if this, I mean, eventually it probably will get to the point where it's going to be usable by other folks, but at the moment, at least, that's kind of my criteria, but I also think that's kind of widely applicable criteria. That the number of or that date time might change. If you're streaming every day, you might have a different number there. We go once a week. I mean, I know folks that are going 2 or 3 times a week. Maybe having the last 3 weeks worth of data would be helpful for them. So, but I think we're always going to have like, if we have no state or we try to load state and just nothing exists, there's always going to be the default of like, there's always going to be the default of a file name that is like the current one. So we need to have some place to save that. And this might end up meaning that we eventually bring in a file picker. So you can give it a like default folder. But I think, so all of that being said, if we lose this state, it's not the end of the world. And we could potentially always, if we're able to parse a file coming in or out, we'd be able to have like an import tool. So you could have a file picker, which lets you pick a file and then imports it and loads it up as a tab. I think we can have that file list in the in local storage, because yes, date is the weighting factor, but also like if I just have a close button where like forget that this file exists is a button, I can just occasionally clear out the last few or whatever, right? So functionally, like I don't have to write logic to just do that for you, or it's not a necessity. So that being said, we have file persister. We call persist store middleware, and that does this work. When we first load the app, we're setting up all this stuff and we don't actually execute anything until store.run. The first thing that we're doing is a rehydrate. Yield star, this is equivalent to in await. We can do this. We could just dump it in local storage. We have allow lists. This is using streams and to-dos. I mean, we can just pull in the default local storage, and that should exist prior to this actually running. So that by the time this rehydrate runs and calls this get item, we'd be able to get some data. Okay, so we get, let's see, get item. Takes a key. Set item takes a key and state. And remove item takes a key. This could be a little bit annoying though. Let's see, create persister, rehydrate. We do a get item based off of the key. Okay. That could complicate things just a little bit. I mean, in theory, we can put this in a closure. The puzzle. Yeah. I mean, honestly, like code is a form of communication. The succinctness of the code doesn't have that big of a difference on performance. Like you're going to be affected by so many other different things that will slow your program down, that a little bit more code that makes it readable, you're going to have actually a better time maintaining that because the performance hit is going to be basically not noticeable. But if people can actually like maintain it and understand it and read it and act on it, that's going to end up preventing or allowing folks to fix bugs better than this super like tight code that nobody can actually read but is performant. Yeah, you can't work on your code when it gets messy. Yeah, I feel that. It feels like it's a constant battle of like organic growth, and then we go. It's like sorry. It expands, but then we have to contract it, and it expands, and then we got to contract it a little bit. You take apart the whole kitchen, and then you have to put it back together again before you can really use it. But that process feels wasted, but the streamlining and that organization ends up being really helpful in my mind. All right, so if we call a local storage rehydrate, this will give us updated state. We are calling a get item here. We can't actually do anything there though. So our create file adapter, we have this like cyclical thing. This create persister with create file adapter. This is set up prior to any of the store and state existing. So acting on it becomes difficult. So I mean, honestly, maybe we just dump it in maybe we just use the Tauri state. There's the store plugin. The store plugin will persist information to the actual to the actual file system, but in a place that's like not really user accessible, which is why we switched to using the file system API, because we want these files to be something that like the user can kind of own. And yes, the backend boots before the front end, and there is just and the store plugin uses this, if I recall. Now the question is the docs. We might have to pop on over to code. State management here. State management, mutability. Do you need arc? If you're noticing a trend here, this is all the Rust side of stuff. So if we look here, we have an app state. We have an event handler. This changes the state. We could use the store plugin in theory, and it would work. But honestly, I don't think we need more than that. I think we just need a list of strings. So if we do, I think we just do something like this, where we just have like an array of strings effectively. We have a counter. I'm thinking so. Darth, you seem like you're cooking though. Hey, Alan, good to see you. Good to see you. Speaking of file system stuff, Alan, you are all over that lately. Alan is, and Rust, file system stuff in Rust. Gosh, what are you not working on lately? A lot of Markdown stuff. Alan likes Markdown, and Alan likes static site generators and that interaction lately. So that's been the bug in Alan's brain. If you need to create, you don't know if we need to keep track of state with the store. You do it with your database. I mean, like the store plugin. I mean, we could do that. Oh yeah, and web components now. So I guess the downside was that with using the store was that we had this await, but like honestly, I guess if we're just instantiating it ahead of time, I could pass the store into the store and do it that way. And it's going to save upon graceful exit, so we can just mutate and then let it save. And we don't ever need to get, except on the first load. We'll only be doing sets after the fact. I don't know, maybe that is the way to go. So if we have a, where is this? We're doing the local storage rehydrate. If we take that ID out, we have a file persister, and we've got a setup store which is taking logs on initial state. Initial state is going to be setting us up here. If we hmm yeah, that might be the way to go, Darth. I think you might have convinced me. We've got top level of await, so we can just chuck it up at the beginning. I mean, the extra load is a little bit unfortunate, but then that will give us a list of files in here. And we can, at which point, then pass it to the create Tauri file adapter. That will let us rehydrate. We're only going to rehydrate when the app loads. So that shouldn't be a problem because it'll reload and we're going to load from the store again. So then the other bit would just be we need to have a nice way to set. So we could call set in a task. If I'm passing that state to the file adapter, I would have it here. So I could set anytime we change. I don't think this remove actually is called anywhere. Yeah, I think it's kind of funny. We had the store plugin, then I took it out, and then I put it back in. Yeah, so we don't have anything else hooked up here anymore. Do we do it through that? So we got a init Tauri with trait. I could just dump it in here. We could just dump it in here. It would be kind of nice to do some of this work in parallel. Await setup tray. And that returns tray. You've not tried to name it .text. Yes, I think we did it as .text. Or actually, no, we did it as top in. I mean, in this case, like the user's not really going to know about this or care about it, so doesn't matter that much. Yeah, let's do that because then that'll just hold the state outside of, and we can have something that handles the set. So anytime we click new, we'll just add a new one. And then anytime we click back, click the X, it'll remove it. And honestly, this kind of comes back around to this actually would be really nice as a resource. Separate conversation, but could you just use the store to print your to-dos also? That's what we had originally set this up to work with the store, but the problem was the store, the APIs changed a bunch, which was a little bit annoying, but like we were on alpha beta, so it's expected. But the big issue was just that it was saving in a place where the user didn't have access, and I wanted to be able to open up the file and copy paste. Like that is a feature, and we didn't have that. So that like file the state, we didn't want to have it self-contained within just the app. So like that's the reason we swapped. That's the main reason we swapped. Because then we could have state per stream in a file that could then be accessed at any time in the future. Like I still have the old to-do items that we did. So yeah, full circle, but like programming it's kind of a thing. Plugin store. And that is alphabetical. Okay. I don't think I really care about that, but I'm gonna just bump it anyways. And we need to go into here. Speaking of, we never actually even took it out of cargo. Kind of funny. Okay. So I think we use the store as like a temp file that lists all of the actual files that we care about. So that will be the way that we bootstrap what data to load into memory. We have a store that is technically a file. It loads when Tauri loads. It will run and load that content into the web view prior to the app mounting and the store being initialized. The store will see that file list. In the rehydrate function, it will loop through and load all the file contents. Those file contents will then be dumped into the initial state or into the store state. And now that content is in memory. When we write or we we run an action from our in-memory state, it's going to, through the persister, save back to the files. I guess that's the one last bit. Okay, we do have state, so we can see what changed. So we'll be able to sort of like derive what changed and then what we would need to potentially save. We'll probably just like save every file to start out with and call it a day. But we can selectively save the state back to the files. And anytime we change the tabs, we can save that to in-memory state and then optimistically update the store. What if you loaded the date? What if you loaded the data into a context provider when you first load to serve it to where you need it on the front end? I think that's kind of what we'll end up doing. That's what we had before. To be clear, we had these APIs dumped into our React context, and we had React Spectrum, which is a component library with its own state management acting on that data. So the store would load the data, put it in a context, and provide a handler to it. And then when we would render a tab or a component, it would use that state from the store, put it into the the list or the component tree state, and manage it from there. So we had all that before. Now the question is, do we put it in React context again? If we're loading it and dumping it into here, this is the thing that has like a global state. Do we need it in React context? I think because we have this abstraction now, I don't think we actually need to use React context because this is functioning similar-ish to React context. You have a way to pull data out of this global state at any point in the tree. That sounds like React context to me. And then we're not specifically tying it to any like render functions. We're just making sure it exists at this global context. So I don't think we want to do React context for this. We still do have, if we look at our main, I think we're setting up the tray. And then we do pass said tray to our app. So we still do have a React context with some of the Tauri APIs in it. I don't see a reason to change that. Like that React context feels fine for that. But I think I'm not going to do it for the store here because when we are initializing setup store, I think we can have all the abstraction. I think we can abstract it out of anything view related and just put it in this spot. And it just happens sort of in the same vein that everything else is automatically. So using that as a props, yeah, so almost like a props into this. So then it just gets wired up into the global store, and then we just effectively like have access to it here. So this create file adapter, we can, I think we end up passing in, because we have get item, we have set item. We need to get the list of files and then update the state. So we need the list of files here. And on set item, we need to, state is going to change. So it's not just like item generically, but like the list of files could actually change. In which case, when that happens, state is going to change. We're going to call set item, and then we're potentially going to remove. If we like click X or close one of our tabs that refers to file, we need to then drop that state. So I think if we put the store into here, the store handler, when we see a state change, we'd be able to act on that. So this is a generator function. I think we can do select statements and stuff in here. I think we're going to roll with that. That should at least get us, I mean, we've done a lot of talking today. not necessarily a bad thing, but this is something like what we need here. I think we roll with this and see how it feels. Where this. If we do load, that loads a store. We do want autosave set to true, because then we can call set. Then we don't have to bother trying to save it every time it changes. We're only going to call get like once, and then we're going to be setting everywhere else. So, I mean, honestly, like this probably is going to be just fine. So we go like this. We're going to say Tauri store. And now we don't actually need the set or the get here. We're going to want those on the other location. And now we got this. So this needs to take a store. I'm going to just dump these here at the moment. And we will say setup store is going to take a Tauri store. And this is Tauri store from that. And our create file adapter is going to also take a Tauri store, of which we're passing in an app state, but also this. So now we should have a Tauri store available. Actually, I'm going to leave it as Tauri store just to make clear that it is a completely separate store. Now, we need to get, so some key. I mean, sure, files, right? We have loaded a store.json. We're going to say to-do files.json. It doesn't really matter because folks aren't actually going to see this. But like, and it is a .json. So if we get this function here. Okay. So now these aren't actually going to be at this level. We want to say on get item this. Whoop, wrong button. We actually won't need to. I will get to that in 1 second, Darth. Because we have a helper for that. And whoop. Why didn't you come along for the ride there? We're gonna just whoop. I keep pressing on Mac shortcuts. It's just messing with my head. Oh my goodness. All right, so a file name. File name is going to technically not exist anymore. So this is going to return a file, which should be a list of strings, if we've done it right. Now this, we're going to switch this to yield star and this to a call, which I don't think we need to pass as a function because I think this is still effection v3. This is coming from star fx, which is coming from effection. Yeah, no problem, Darth. To be clear, I wasn't calling you out because I don't want you to continue chatting. This is not inherently a generator's thing. So like, unless you've used effection, you wouldn't know this exists, because this is effection. So what effection is doing is, at a high level, async await, and the control after you fire off a promise is sort of tacked on and not robust. Once you fire off a promise, you kind of just need to hope it finishes or like kill it, which kind of sucks. And then managing that is also painful, which is why, and that's when you started seeing the then what do they call it, the then waterfall. I feel like there's a name for it, where you have like promise dot then dot catch, and like your code just became unreadable because it was 60 spaces to the right because you have all these like nested promise handling. So that's why async await was created. It's much easier to reason about using async await, but it also means that you're doing a lot of the it's almost synchronous. You lose a lot of your ability to do things in parallel. And there's like promise.all, but it still has similar issues where killing zombie promises is not the easiest. Generators, though, you have a lot of control, but they're kind of a pain to work with, honestly, which is probably part of the reason it didn't catch on. And I think async await was originally built on top of generators. So generators let you do or have more control over that process. But we need some sugar on top of it to make it nice to work with. And that's part of what effection is doing. It's trying to, it's especially with this upcoming v4, it works pretty well with TypeScript too. The TypeScript and generators have always had a tepid past, but it's gotten a lot better recently. And what's nice is you can, with more control, you can be more direct about cleaning up promises. So we can wrap this promise in a call. If this function goes out of scope, like we finish executing all this stuff, this is just going to clean up the promise for us. It'll kill it off and everything. So you don't have all these like zombie promises, and we can do a lot of work in parallel with a lot less lift. So you can get real fancy without your code just becoming a mess. To be clear, you can get fancy in functionality, not necessarily like spaghetti code. Maybe a quick example of things you can do, in part because this WebSocket lib might be something that we pull in. We'll see how things pan out and if it makes sense to pull in this directly. Partly because this is a resource, which is also an affection thing. But a resource is just a fancy way to set up some code. And here, like you can see, erase. It's doing a bunch of this stuff all in parallel. And it's got a finally. It cleans up after itself. So once this thing goes out of scope, it just gets killed off. You don't even need to think about it. So I've used a lot of affection for like local dev server type things. If you've ever worked with a dev server and every time you stopped it, it wouldn't close and get rid of the port, which is so entirely frustrating. much better experience because it just cleans it up for you. So that being said, the one I wanted to show, like this, yeah, like task buffer, you can spawn stuff off, and it's got queues and concurrency, and like it sounds awful to write. Like check out the code, spawn and a provide. It does take you are looking at yield star a lot, so you have to like make a little bit of a switch in your brain. But like the code that you can write, I feel like ends up being it's worth that little bit of trade off. So this is what a garbage collector would do. Yeah, kind of. Garbage collector is more memory specific. So I guess to use that as a parallel, you either have like manual memory management or you have a garbage collector. The garbage collector, like once the thing goes out of scope or whatever logic they use, then the garbage collector runs. So it's not a great example because when the garbage collection process runs is sort of language dependent. So it doesn't immediately happen when the thing goes out of scope. It's like queued up. But like resources will be cleaned up or there'll be at least the shutdown or the try, there's the try catch finally. The finally block will run like when this resource gets shut down. So it'll be as much as you can do before the language takes over, as much as you can do, you'll be able to shut it down. When it has an issue, it queues up. Yeah, so the task buffer is a queue. Manages concurrent tasks, maximum limit, and simultaneously active operations. So you just dump in information and it will run as many as you've defined it to run and queue up all the rest and then process them once the previous active requests finish. So I haven't actually seen any code for doing this outside of affection. Like I haven't needed it to where I've actually looked at this and see how these things operate. But like I have to imagine that they're way more complex than this. There's not much going on here. And that comes back to generators, that control that you have. All right, so call, yield call, we should get that value. Value should be the, we're going to say file list. So this should be empty at the moment. We haven't actually run anything yet. We've been doing a lot of talking. But honestly, playing around with architectures and whatnot, and like coding in general, I feel like a lot of it is communication and discussion, and then like 5% actually writing the code, and maybe 15% trying to get TypeScript to work. At least if you've ever done a library with TypeScript, it makes me want to write Rust because Rust is so much more helpful with the errors, and then I actually get benefit from making my types nice. TypeScript is just, there's so much involved with it, and then all it is to make the dev experience a little bit nicer. And if anybody does in anywhere, your types are just blitzed. All right, so what do we got? What do we got going on? This is probably a permission error. Stored on load not allowed. Yep. I guess we got to do a guess we just do allow load. Or no, well, let's just do the default. The default is probably going to be fine. We can always rein it in as we go. You have not tried a TypeScript library, or actually really any TypeScript at all. You're not against it, just you haven't felt the need for your level of stuff. Yeah. I was forced into it because of work, and now that I'm familiar with it, I kind of default to it. Like I see the benefit in it. And when I'm using it like downstream in projects, like on my website or whatever, if I chuck in any somewhere, it's not going to be the end of the world. Or I could just do something generic that I know isn't fully typing it properly, but like it'll be enough to help me out. But if you're writing a library, people are using your TypeScript. Like your TypeScript ends up being effectively like part of that API. Like folks are actually operating and working with that library and using that TypeScript like the API at this point. So you have to it ends up getting complex because then now you're expecting whatever user to pass whatever thing in. So getting generics working and all that stuff, it is a pain. But after you put in that effort, if you have people that know how to actually use that and work with it, it's really nice. Because especially when you're passing around a lot of like objects and like deeply nested data, just being able to like hover over it and see exactly what this thing is supposed to contain. And then in theory, your setup should be enforcing that as well. If your setup is enforcing that what you're looking at, hovering over in your ID, I guess Alan doesn't use VS Code, so maybe not hovering. But whatever your IDE tells you should be correct because it's also enforcing it. So I by no means am I going to say that everybody needs to use it. I think there is benefit for large work projects where you have lots of people working on it. And like open source is kind of just stuck in that place where it's useful. I think that's probably been the biggest driver of like animosity towards it. It's kind of infectious. If you have somebody that is using a library that's using TypeScript, they find value in having good types. So that means that every library I'm using, I want to encourage them to have good types. Because it sucks when you don't have everything typed, because then everybody is doing their own like custom types for each one of these libraries that is, well depended on. So the problem is now you're having all these people go, hey, can you add types for this? And that's why all the maintainers hated it, especially at first. Because it was like, if you don't gain benefit from it, that's a lot of effort. And now you're asking me to change my whole build setup to get this thing to work with this thing that you want, that I'm not seeing any benefit. And then all these folks that are requesting it are, weren't actually going to do it or open up a PR to do it themselves. So it's just a lot of maintenance burden. But like now that we've kind of gotten through it, I kind of like TypeScript. Maybe a hot take. All right, so we have a file list. Why are we not? I was trying to set a default. This will be in line 102. Is that not actually undefined? We'll say file list store. And then we'll say const file list equals. And this should be, okay, so it's either going to be that or undefined. So we'll say dot value or this. Nope. There we go. Oh, but we can't do it as an array. All right, we're going with a ternary. Oh, yes, let's go with that. All right, there we go, file list. Okay, so if we don't have any files, we're just going to assume that, yes, we need a single file name, which should work fine. I'm going to take that out. We've got a Tauri store passed in. So now we should be able to use this file list to open any files. We're going to have to do that effectively in parallel, which is a thing. We're also going to need to do like a decoding function. So this is we're gonna call this our default file name. Because then in here we want to say for const file name of file list, do some things. So now this will open it, do the buffer thing, grab the content, and then close it. So this will loop through all of the files and do the same. Oh, wait. File list should be a string or string. Oh. So we are not going to be, I mean, value is going to be a list of strings, right? So what if we do this? Let's say files, and dot length is greater than 0. I know it's possibly undefined. Oh, I guess we'll just do this. Speaking of TypeScript, this is TypeScript being helpful, but also like kind of not. There. So like I've now fixed it here. This is happy, and I feel actually pretty good that what I'm going to be getting here is actually going to be what I'm expecting. So at this point we have content, and then we are going to be returning a list of files, and from each file we're going to be returning a list of to-dos. So we will end up having a whole bunch of to-dos. So we can say const to-dos equals this. Now our to-do is going to have it's going to be to do from schema. All right. So now our to-dos has an actual like type definition. So if we say before we close it, I guess we'll say a to-dos.push, and we can say let's add an item, and now we have an ID, content, and checked. So content is that. I guess checked is going to be part of the status too, eh? We're going to just load it as false for right now. and I'm gonna put a to do in here. Determine logic for if this is checked. Because I wasn't originally going to save that status in here, but we might need to. And how are we doing the ID? That's a little bit annoying because we're going to be, I would like it to compute the ID for me. That would be handy. So let's see. So storage will end up being this. And that. And we don't need to parse anymore. Just the data, you're saving it already. Is that what you said before? Am I rereading something you said before? I think the ID is going to need to be something that we generate in the same vein. Because that content is going to have the actual value of the to-do. It will have a status by means of proxy. Like if we're saving the like a timestamp and then the to-do item, we would know based on the existence of said timestamp if it's checked or not. Because if it's checked, we would expect a timestamp. But then the ID, we need to do it in the same way here. So we got to do this. I guess. I mean, we're already sort of like importing from here anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. We need a ID for star effects because that's part of the state. State is controlled via, or it can be relative to the ID. So there's kind of a default expectation that ID is just part of your data structure, or at least a way to identify, because the data that you're saving in memory is not an array, it's an object. And I think that's if you've used Immer.js, I think that's an Immer.js thing. So we want to import, and now we do an encoder for content. This feels, I mean, I probably don't need to do that. I might be able to just do this. Can we just say buff? But I don't know if that like buffer goes away or anything. We might need to double check that. Okay, so this will give us a bunch of to-dos. Then we push them in there. The ID content checked isn't going to be sufficient to identify it though to a specific file. So we need to say file name. And said file name can be part of our schema. Schema. I'm gonna leave it as a string. I think we could do like a path like or something as a separate type. Like well, there's what path, path and path like. I don't know if those are node things or not, but for what I care about, string is fine enough. Okay, so this should give us a bunch of to-dos, and you can see some stuff starting to come in. We are writing out a file, so we're pulling in the file again, and then we're operating on that content to do some stuff. This to-dos though is also going to be in a loop. So we need to put a parse process in here. So I think when we push content in, I think I'm just going to have like a stringified list. I'm not going to care about the check status. I'm just going to care about the content. So what I think we say is we say content is going to be a, it's actually not content. This is the whole file content. And now from there, I'm going to say const items equals whole file content dot split, and I'm going to split on a new line. So now we can say we're going to do a loop within a loop. Const content of items. Whoa, that's not what I meant to do. Oh my goodness. Mixing up my Mac shortcuts again. This one. There we go. Now we should push each item in there as a separate thing. So this is probably gonna get weird and break, as you can see. We will deal with that though. Because we also need to be writing out in a way that is going to be reasonable. Now, when we do a set item, we're just writing the whole file, right? This is writing it into file name. So based off of the name of the file and the date and what we've created, it, the default is going to just like have that specific date. So if we go into here, we can also set. But we also need to say that our state, that's going to be different. So let's see if we can write a select. I think we can do a select. So if we say const const file content equals yield star select, and we're going to say I guess this is just going to be a selector. And this is kind of a streams because we're writing multiple files. So we're going to call it to-dos per stream. Now we actually have to write this stuff. This is going to be, yep, select is going to come from star effects, and then we need to write this. So if we go into, we only have thunks. We don't have any selectors. So this is going to be our first selector. And we need to do a selector called, I guess we'll say streams.ts. What did I call my thunks? Stream. And that's what we're going to call it. I'm going to do, just to save us a hot minute here, let's do a little copy pasty. That's kind of a lot. That's also a lot. I've got a lot going on in here, I guess. Okay, this one's more reasonable. Just so I don't have to deal with all the imports and such. So we're going to name our selector this, and we are importing schema. I don't need those. I don't need those. I need the selector. We're importing from, I don't have aliases set up, so we need to go up one. So we get schema, and selectors are interesting because you can you can do a thing. Compose, that's the word I'm looking for. You can compose selectors, which is really nice because every selector is memoized. So you can have this like graph or tree of data, of derived data. So if we have a bunch of to-do items, we want that memoized data to update every time to-dos change. If our streams change, we don't necessarily need to change the state of to-dos, which means we don't need to change the selected data that this would return. In our case, we're actually going to be relying on both, so oh well. But what we're going to do, I guess if we say streams select, we're going to say select table as list, because I want all of them as a list. The default is an object. There's also a select table. That's going to give you an object. Those IDs that we set before, those IDs are going to be the like the named parameter for the internal data. And select table as list is effectively calling like a object dot values. So now here we have a streams and a to-dos. So we write a function that then gets memoized, and whatever this returns, that returned data will be memoized. We want to return a list of to-dos, but I guess it's actually going to be an object. So let's say we're going to say const, or say const streams equals an array, and we're going to return, oh wait, no. Streams with to-dos. Yeah. Now we're going to say as an object of file name, which is a string, and to-dos, which is an array of to-do. So this should be something we can push to now. We'll say we'll say const streams of streams. And now we can say streams with to-dos dot push. So this file name is going to be a stream dot file name, and our to-dos are going to be a to-dos dot filter. And I guess we just say because it has a file name. So to-do and to-do dot file name equals stream dot file name. There we go. So this will loop through all of our to-dos, all of our streams and to-dos, I guess, and will end up giving us like a nested group thing. So now we can say it's exported. We can import it. So file content should be this. And we can do another loop. Const streams of it feels weird. Files content, file content, files contents. I don't know. File with to-dos. Okay, now we write it out. So we're going to And the reason you'll notice here that I am doing a lot of for loops rather than doing maps. I feel like map and for each tend to be a little bit more common these days in JavaScript. For loops work with yield, and you don't need to do this like nested. Your map becomes a return of promises, which you need to wait till it's. I can just do a yield directly in there. I mean, process to do. I don't hate it, but like, I guess this is literally just the to dos per stream. Maybe just say stream to dos. Stream with to dos. Okay, so we're gonna write out. We're going to do that dot file name and then the state. The state needs to go away, and we need to derive a state. So we'll say const state equals. This is going to be the content of the file, and we're going to say stream with to-dos dot to-dos dot join. We're going to map over all of them, and we're going to say to do, just give me the content for the moment, and then we're going to join it with returns. Just how OCD we get all of our names. I mean, honestly, like I don't know that I personally qualified it as like an OCD thing. Naming is important, and it's hard because we're operating on at least with everything I write, the code is written in English. So folks that are coming in potentially with English, I mean, G2 is just saying they use Google Translate for everything. Like, that's potentially a painful layer. So to understand the code, you need to be able to read English and that language with the syntax. And now we're writing just some generic name that, depending on whatever culture you come from, might have some inherent meaning. So besides just like looking in a dictionary and looking at an English dictionary, like the differences between English in the US and in the UK, like there's some words that we use in technology that means crass things in the UK. So honestly, like, let's be very specific about names because they matter, and that's how people are reading and understanding your code. So if we spend a bunch of time trying to get a name right, it's for us, our future selves, and for anybody else reading it. The better we name it, and the more specific name and a name without baggage, the easier time we're going to have maintaining it. So it feels like time generally well spent, especially the more public the API is, the more that actually matters. Because if I'm using it, if I'm writing this code, I'm going to work with a team and they're going to also be reading this code, we can hop on a voice call and go through it. If I'm writing a library, somebody needs to just read your code in with a combination of whatever documentation you have plus that name, just know how to use it. So like pedantic is fine. All right. So this should give us potentially something that we can work with now. It's going to be like written out really weird. So like if I don't know if it's going to even let us delete any of this. We might just need to manually go in and close out that file. All right, I'm going to just straight up delete it because it's not helpful. So we're going to refresh. We're going to have no content. It thinks we do because it's going to have just a single array. Let us console.log items. That's why. Because we're going to get, this is going to be just a single like string. So we're going to actually say here, items is going to be this. But if whole file content is an empty string, then just do an empty array. There, now we have no items. So if we say hello, okay. It comes through and then we get an error. Error only supports setting array indices in the length property. Check the endpoint to do.add. Now, I don't know that it's necessarily a failure there. It could very well be a failure here. So what we're going to do up to that point is this. So we're going to say a why is that oh, let's log this out. I have a feeling it might be something with this stream to-dos. Okay, I want to get some code, or I want to get some items in there before we actually try going to save out. Okay, stream to-dos. So we are actually hitting this and we are seeing an empty file name because it's the default. Now let us fix that, because we're going to have when we rehydrate, we have a default file list now. So we should always have we're pushing to-dos here. We're pushing to-dos, but then we also want streams. So if we say streams. Oh, is this also not to-dos? What did I name them? Streams to-dos. Okay, I did name them that way. So we want streams and to-dos. And our streams are going to be const streams equals I guess just file list, right? Because we're looping through file list. So file list dot this is going to be a list of strings. So we want to say map and file name, and this needs to be a stream from there as an array. So this should be where's our schema? ID title file name. So ID and title are the date, and then the file name just has that in there. So we know our default is the name there. So we'll be able to say if file list dot length is 0, then do one of these, otherwise do this. And this is going to end up being an ID of name, in title of name, and a file name of default file name. So this will rehydrate the local state. And then we need this little bit. I'm going to name, you're there. Why don't you like that? Oh, I need to wrap this. There we go. Okay. And so ID is going to be the, I guess we're only saving the file name, so that's a little bit annoying. We are naming it .text, so we can say file name is file name. The title ends up being a we almost like the string manipulation for paths would be useful here, but we don't really have that. So I guess I'm just gonna say return this, and we'll do a little bit of logic prior. Now const loaded file name, and if we say file name dot split, yes, only issue with tiny logic to names is the user's access and renames them. Yes, that is definitely an issue. And I guess we could save that. So when somebody loads it, like once it's loaded in, so we are hard coding right now on creation. So if you hit plus, it's just going to create the file for you in my default file name spot. So we do need to change that. Let's put it to do. To do make this dynamic. And or make this dynamic by user input. So we could have like a settings menu or something like that. So now if we have the default, that will do this. But like once it's been created, we're going to have a list of files that we're referring to. Or once it's like been loaded into state or somehow gets into our store, we'll have that file. So with the streams, we can just do it based off the name of the file. I think I'm okay with that. I was going to do a split, but the problem is like that's not consistent. We're going to roll with it though, because time loaded file name dot was it length at no shift. Does pop give us here we're gonna go like this. Dot was it pop? Removes the last element and returns it. And then we can do a dot replace, and the file name is going to have a dot text. So a little bit but like this should probably work fine for right now. To do, we may not be able to split on this separator. So we have streams. name, string, default file name. Those are all set. Now, this file list is going to be a list of strings. We then return, why is that undefined? Oh, because this could be undefined. Well, if we split, good enough. I kind of wanted to actually, oh, it does not like that, does it? All right, fine. Oh. There we go. It'll be fine. Okay, so we've got a default, and it is now loading this. If we say hello, and we try to add, we're now still getting our error. Gonzalo, good to see you. Let's see what you have in store for us today. Well, guess what? I have in store for you Tauri apps plugin store. Yay for dad jokes. We're doing a store within a store. I heard you like stores, Gonzalo. Okay. I'm gonna say that I'm done with the dad jokes, but let's be real. Okay, so why are you complaining here? Get item is incompatible. Okay, sure. Probably because we need to do a little cleanup here. All right, so storage. Okay. So this is, we might need to fix that. And I think we're actually at that point anyways. So we have streams. That's going to give us an array of streams. We have to-dos, and that's going to give us an array of to-dos. So what are we not liking up here? They were expecting a type matching partial loaders, cache, streams, to-dos. They're expecting it as a record, not an array. So this is kind of the downside. I feel like working with Immer, I end up wanting to use the data always in the form of an array, but it's not stored like that. So I have to always go back and forth, which is kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. Okay. So I guess we say storage here. And storage then ends up being, we're going to say streams dot let's do a little helper. It'll be fine. We'll say const array to object, and we'll say array, which will be an array of ID of string and whatever else you want to put in there. And now object dot array dot, actually I'm going to rename this. We'll say input array That was a little bit too close to the system array. I didn't want to accidentally mess those up. We're going to call reduce, and we're going to say good old map reduce, right? I don't know how much this is going to care about types, and honestly, at this point, I don't know that I actually care. Final result, final record, and current. Return final record. Why aren't you helping me out here? Oh, file. I type file instead of final. Final record and current dot ID and current. And this is gonna go bloop bloop index stuff and it's fine TypeScript. Shh. The index stuff with strings is kind of annoying. I feel like I do that all the time, but then it gets very specific about like you need to type out all the keys and everything, and that ends up being a lot of work for like not that much benefit, it feels like. Now array to object, do your thing, and to-dos is going to be array to object and to-dos. Okay, now are you complaining? This might be complaining just because we didn't type the stuff well down there. The two similar types have a property value, which is different. Read, okay. Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. I was expecting type matching partial, but instead he passed unknown. Okay. Actually, should we do some generics? Speaking of like, I learned the TypeScript to do the things. And we're gonna say, oh, I'm thinking of the type. So T as an input, this is going to be this is going to extends T. Are you gonna like that? It extends T, cannot find name T. Oh, am I doing my generic wrong? Did I have it in the right spot? No. Is this TypeScript? Yes. Okay. Wait, where do you put it? Am I just okay? Function. None of this anonymous function stuff. All right. So now we need to return this. Now, array to object. It lacks return type annotation because it has an any return type. This can go away now, and we can say T is a generic. We're saying we have a thing with ID string. Okay, go like this. It's an array. Okay, so we have an array of T, and current is going to be T. And T is going to extend ID of string, and well, we'll just leave it at that. Okay, so we're back to that indexed issue. So if we do away with that, does this complain? If I can't get the generics on this shot, I might just say screw it. Yeah, unknown. T extends key. What is the auto keyword weak? ID prop, I know. ID prop is the name of that key. Except it still is a string, so it's still going to potentially, yep. Yep, see ID prop. Okay. We're going to do this. It's not helping us at the moment, so the return type because of ID prop and is unknown. Ignore for now. Good enough. We tried the generics. It was getting in the way. Nobody's using this downstream, so it'll be fine. So if we say hello now, it saved. It saved. It gave us this. With this, we've got that. And if we open up our file, this is empty. But that's fine because, so now if we refresh, that's going to go away. That's all working. If we look here, we are logging out stream to-dos. Stream to-dos is giving us the information that we need. So this is calling state. Oh. What is select take? It is selecting from like the actual state. So it takes a selector function. Okay, so we can do this. Except it's not actually that state. Do I have to actually do this? I have the state, so maybe I can just do this. It's expecting any state. I mean, part of doing the TS expect error is, so there's a couple of reasons that I tend to do TS expect error. If you fix it, if it's like an error downstream or upstream of that code, if you fix it, it will then throw an error if it's not needed. So then it gives you some way to come back to and remove it if it's definitely not needed, and just like destroying your types. TS expect error, not TSX. So this will, if it's actually not needed and there's no error, it will throw an error and say, hey, remove me. You're trying to ignore something that doesn't need to be ignored. So when I'm trying to get a thing to work, it's nice to just chuck it in there and come back to, and like I can search for it and come back to it and say, hey, this actually doesn't need to be here anymore. I can just remove it. But then also I can search for it and come back to it and fix it if the code that I'm writing actually ends up working out and running the way I'm expecting it to. So I can Now I have a hook. I've got two hooks to come back to and remove it. If I've broke it, but actually fixed it, or if I need to come back to it and put in the time to fix it now that I know the rest of my code is in a good place to do that. So we have a stream to-dos. So if we look here, every time we do a log, or every time we add something, we should see the new log, stream to-dos. Oh, let's close this. And it still doesn't have those to-dos. So what's the state? Let's log out the state as well. Whoop, I did save as, not refresh. Okay, so we have streams. We have no to-dos. So if we go bloop, 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 and add a to-do, now we have a to-do. Okay. But that to-do does not actually have the file name. So we need to deal with that. If we look at our to-do, we're starting to get errors here. So again, it's some effort to deal with TypeScript, but also it's kind of nice sometimes. File name. It's throwing an error because we hadn't set a file name. So we do need to figure that out. We are getting in a content, which is a string. I guess we kind of also want the file name, eh? So we should say file name string. And then we would be able to do file name. And that checks out. But it's still not going to work because we need to clean it up when we're passing in the data. And if we look at our view, presuming I remember where my view is, components, to-do list, we should be getting an error because we haven't passed in file name. So here we are grabbing the content from that form. We should also have the context available on what let's see, list ID and file operations. So to do select table as list. So this is still definitely just for all of them. So we do need to fix that. We will come back to it. But until then, let's just start passing in the actual item content. To do, we need to look for to do. So it's expecting those two. So tabs, is that rendering a to do? No. Maybe. Tab list. Where is that coming from? Oh, to do. There it is. So we are passing in a list ID and a file ops. So the tab ID, I'm gonna rename that because it's actually the do we name it the file name? So we have tabs, which is going to be a stream. So we have a tab ID. We're going to just call that the file name. Or no. Let's just pass in the whole stream. because that stream could have some value to just have that context. If we go into to-do list, we go here where we don't need file operations anymore. We're going to call it stream, and we're going to say go away and stream, and this is going to be stream, and that's going to be from there. So now we have this, and I don't think I need that anymore, so we'll get rid of that. Now, file name is stream.filename. There we go. So, refresh. Bloopily boop. Add. We get stream to-dos with one to-do item. Now, we gotta actually save it out. So we're gonna bring this back. And I guess I can leave that. Oh, yeah, it's doing it because of that. Yeah, whatever, it's fine. Refresh. Bloop bloop. Save. Now, if we open up this file, we should have some content in there. There we go. And now, if we add another one, hello chat. And if we refresh, interesting, it brought in the last one. So we'll do that, and let's do a refresh again. So it's bringing in the last one. So our logic in the rehydrate is flawed. So if the file list length is that, then it's just going to do the, oh wait, no. Here. So if our whole file content is this, then we do an empty array, or we're splitting on that. So let's log that out and just make sure that, oh, actually we are already. Items. Hello chat. ASD. That feels fine. Oh, buffer. That doesn't work because my D is going to overlap. That's why. Let's fix that logic. In our to-do, we are doing this little dance. Because we need each item in that array needs to have its own separate ID, and that's going to be based relative to the content. All right. So if we do a refresh, just that one comes back, and now if we add and we say hello chat, if we refresh, it comes back. Sweet. So if we add a new item here, that would be the, what are we at? We're at almost 3 hours. Let's see if I have any work messages real quick. What time we got? We've got maybe a hot minute. Okay. Let's see if we can get adding in a new one real quick working. And then we'll go from there. So the store is actually going to contain, it's going to keep this file now. So now every time we make a new one, it's going to use today's date and generate the file. So I guess actually, we need to write the state anytime the state changes. So the state is right now we're reliant on the default state. This effectively. Because we're getting a list of no files. That's what originally added the file name in there, and then it did this. So here we're doing a set item. So in this situation, we are so we don't actually see what changed. So we're just going to end up writing out the file every time. Don't love it, but you know, it is a thing. So after we've done that, what if we then this. So we have a Tauri store set. This is going to be the same key that we need to load from, which will be files. And the value is going to be a value of which we said it's files. And it's going to be an array of strings. So in this case, we are saying, stream to dos dot map stream dot file name. This will set it every time we make a change in the store, and then I think we are getting an error. We ran into this last time where here, let's just try doing a yield star here. I think this technically will work, but type safety wise it will not. But yeah. There we go. I think we're getting an error with the store. Potentially. But it is not actually showing it to us. Okay, I've got an idea. This is right. So we're gonna just do a little bit of this. And after we've loaded, if we just say await files empty array. Maybe it isn't an error. So what is happening that it's not saving? Wait, did it start saving on us? No, it didn't. Oh. Wait, what? The heck? Oh, was I literally typing the exact same thing? I was typing the exact same thing over and over. Ah, that's hilarious. Go me. It was actually working, and I was just no-opping because I already typed in ASD like 17 times, so it seemed like it wasn't working. All right, now we've got a file full of stuff, which is great. I had one job and I did that one job. At least I was consistent, I guess. So if we delete every one of these and we do a refresh, empty. Cool. I think we're working. So the only thing would be if we click this, what is it going to do? It should be creating a new tab. And we've got, let's do, first of all, let's do a, let's do a quick selector for, to do, I guess. And to do's. Any state. And we want to pass in the I guess the file name as a string, and that's going to return a file name. So now we've got to-dos and a file name. So now we can say for, I don't even need to do that now. I can just say return that. There we go. There we go. So this will give us the, I gotta name that differently though. To-dos per stream. To-dos 4? No, to-dos by stream file name. There we go. We can update this view right quick. To-do list is going to be a select this, and instead we're going to do an S. Boom, and we're going to say do that as an S and a stream.file name. And we need to import this, and oh, is it like that? Wait, argument of type string is not assignable to parameter of type any state. Oh, I did have it right. Why was it complaining? Argument of type unknown is not assignable to parameter of type any state. So why would that be? I guess any state. Okay, there we go. Now that should this view should only show the items per stream based on the file name. So now if we click on the add new one, we will get a add tab. Add tab is passed in. From here, we don't actually need file operations anymore. We're going to take this out. Add tab is dispatch add stream. So we're adding a stream based on the thunks. And here we are saying just make it with the file name that we have set. So I guess it makes sense. Hi, kitty. Oh yeah, what do you need? Oh, you don't know? She doesn't know. How do we test this though? I guess what I'll do is I'll take the problem is I've got the file, and in Tauri's state it is also like persisted, so it knows that there's a file there called today's date already. So if I do add for a different one, I guess it'll create it if it doesn't exist already, right? So let's just say name 1. I did get a new file called name 1. I don't see it in the tab list though. Oh. Okay. So we refreshed and then it showed up. If we go back here, every time we change the state, we are writing out a list of files. So this to-dos per stream is going to give us that. Let's go ahead and just log this out again. Stream to-dos. That has a file name associated with it. If I go back here and fix this to be the default, if I refresh, it is still only aware of that single one. If I hit add, there we go, we get a second one in there. And now when I well, the stream to-dos has 2, okay. And now if I refresh, there we go. Hey, okay, it's working. It's just the naming scheme will be a little bit wonky because I've got these like default file names in here. So we'll allow the user to set default or something. And that's how we would make it dynamic. And so this will probably be like a file picker or something like that, where when you're first setting it up, if you don't have that value set somewhere, then they'll have to use a file picker and set it. So now we can do bloop, bloop, bloop. Hello. Great way to spell hello, by the way. And now if we refresh, there we go, there we go. And we can open up this file. You can see that is matching and correct. We can open up this file and that is matching and correct. Hi. What do you need? Attention is what she said. Oh, say hello. Oh, well, the updated meeting, I missed it. Oh well. Wait, the problem with streaming on Tuesdays is anytime there's a holiday on Monday and meetings get moved around, they always get moved to my time slot. But if folks don't like think about it to do it ahead of time, oh well. Okay, so this seems to be all working. It is saving and is persisting. And if we remove that item, that works. If I click remove tab, that works. It has lost that state So now next time we jump in here, we can hit plus. It will generate a new tab. That tab will be for that specific day because we've got it hard coded. And it feels like Monday, right? I think we're gonna be off to the races. This is just about usable actually. Let's do the timestamps real quick here, and we'll go from there. When we're persisting, we want to write out and pull it back with the timestamps in front of it. So if we say state, that state is going to be, it's going to have information related to it. So how do, I guess when we can't do that when we write. We almost need to embed it into the handler, or like into the state. When we, so if we've got a list of like 3 items, so we have, I need to fix my clear button. It doesn't work. Oh, clears this. Curious. All right. So if we have a list of item 1, 2, 3. When we're talking about something, we're talking about item number 1. If I check this box, it means that I've completed it. Our timestamp, though, should be when we started it. So how do we know when we started it? Well, the first one's going to be 0, 0. So that's easy. When we check the box, though, the next one will be for the previous one. So there's an order of them also. Can we do drag and drop? Because we also kind of want to drag and drop these. Which, if it's not going to help me with this, then that might be something that I'll either do that off stream or yeah, okay. Checked is a status that I guess, okay, we can save when it finished. And let's write that out for right now. That'll be sufficient. And checked is just going to end up being a state then. So we'll say finished at, and this will be like, I guess a string. So when we check it off, add, remove, set to do selection. So here we are, if they're all checked, checked is just going to be true. This might get kind of gummy, but here we're doing checked, and then this, can we do a finished at, and this will be a new date dot to ISO string. So all the talking, my jaw is starting to get sore. I must be like clenching. If we check this, we should, in that state now, have a finished at. They're all set. What? Oh, it's doing a patch. So, okay, so if this isn't set yet, I won't be able to like uncheck it and recheck it, which is kind of annoying. If we do a, like, I don't know what changed. So that's the problem right here. If we look at the selection, we don't have a diff. It's just a state has changed, and like here's the whole bloody thing. And we have two options. We either have all, or we've got like the whole caboodle. So if we say finished at, we only want to set it for ones that don't have it. So if we say if item dot finished at, so now they're all going to end up being checked false. If we check one, yeah, when we load it, loading inst is still a little bit weird too. Yeah, so it doesn't have any of it. So if we uncheck this one, well, here we got to do it. We got to do a new one. So item 4. That is not going to have a finished at. So if we then check it, now we got it, and it is a different timestamp. Okay, so that will work. It's a little bit wonky, but I mean, we can at least save that out, and we can kind of go from there. So in here, then we are pushing in to-dos, and when we first load, we're going to say finished at, and it's just undefined, I guess. It doesn't like that. When we write out, we are writing out the state, which currently is just the content. I'm actually going to switch this to be a template, and we're going to say this, and we're going to say to do dot finished at. So now we'll get the timestamp in there. And on our content here, we're going to have, we'll call that line, and we'll say const finished at and content. And we're going to do line dot split, and we're going to split on the colon. Now we might, like in theory, we should put in validation to make sure that we don't have a second colon. We could do that, and that's going to give us content strings. So if we happen to have another colon in there, that will save us content, and then we can say content strings dot join, and we'll just join it right back. It's a little bit awkward, but like whatever, it'll work for parsing. So now if we load up, we're going to delete this one. We're going to load this one. Undefined. That makes sense. We are going to delete that one and refresh. So now, hello. And that makes sense because we don't actually have it defined yet. So I think what we then do is, this is to-dos per stream, but it's in reality, we kind of want finished to-dos. per stream. So if we do that, we need to update our selector to say finished. Well, actually, here we're gonna do that. You know that composition that we were talking about. Export const finished to-dos equals create selector. This is going to be a schema.todos.select table as list. To-dos, and we want to then return a to-dos.filter. If to-do dot finished at. So now we can say here, only give us the finished ones. So when we write out into the actual file, we're only going to see the finished ones. Actually, no. No, we're not going to do that. I'm taking that back. I don't want to say undefined. I want to do a, because I want all the to-dos, because when I reload it, I want to be able to see the unfinished to-dos as well. And if we're not saving that out into our file, it won't persist. And we want that information to persist and show up again. So if we go here and we say we're going to write out our state, it is going to be a to-do. This should be to-dos per stream. There we go. How do you get started in Tauri? You need some video options to learn. We've got lots of live streams on this channel. Some of them are deeper than others. I've got many live streams, and there's 2 videos. So if you're interested in more direct content, as in on the streams we digress and we answer questions and we meander through different things and experiment. If you want something more direct, check out the couple videos we got. There's the docs. I would say I've got a couple videos in the docs. I don't know of anybody else that's making a whole ton of tutorial videos yet. There's probably some folks out there, but I haven't seen anybody that's like shipping them consistently. So if you're looking for like a directed workshop or something like that, I'm unaware of one that exists yet. It's a lot of work to do, and Tauri's not nearly as mature as some other platforms, so it's gonna take a bit of time. Yeah. Yep. So feel free to hop in and ask questions too. We're here pretty much every week. Okay, so we've got now our finished at. So we're going to set items, and if there's no finished at, we will actually specifically say that this can be undefined. That's fine. I'm probably gonna regret actually keeping it as undefined, later. But unfinished. There we go. Okay, so now we should be saving all of our stuff into this file, and we can delete this one. Actually, here, let's just switch it. Let's switch it. Unfinished. There we go. We'll probably want to do like a little bit of ordering on it. Why didn't that update? That's kind of weird. Howdy. Oh, yeah, and that's not loading back in. Okay, let's do that real quick here. Finished at. So if finished at equals unfinished, then undefined. Oh, undefined. Otherwise, finished at. Parsing things. Okay, so, and we can actually then say here too, we're saying checked as false, right? So we can say, finished at, it is a string. It is the finished at timestamp, I guess. I mean, it's not really a timestamp. Qualifier. So we got something more like this now. Const finished at equals this. And now we can say finished at. There. Bam. Okay, so now that we have checked these off, they continue persist after a refresh and reload from the file. Ta-da! Nice. You just finished all your stuff too. I think this is actually at a place where we can start using it. There might be a couple little other like cleanup things that I'll do, but honestly, it's good enough, and I'm gonna get timestamps. So they're not great timestamps, but they're a lot better than what I had. This. So like I'm gonna have this. I can derive timestamps based off of this. I guess the one last thing that I'll do is to-dos per stream. So to-dos per stream will be this. And when we do this, we're also going to sort it based off of to-do. It's technically a string. I'm not quite sure how. So if to-do dot finished at so if that's undefined, let's see. I gotta always remind myself, sorts an array in place. It mutates the array. Don't love it, but wait, there's a sort something else now, right? Sort that doesn't mutate. Shift splice. What is it? Entries every fill filter. Sum splice unshift fit. Right? There was a is it sum? No. MDM array sort. In place and returns the reference. Here, use two sorted. Okay. So here, this is going to sort. So if we get A and B, A minus B. So if they're negative, one, 10, 21, 2. Oh, okay. Oh, I see what they're doing. Yeah, okay. Yes, so we want to do like this. That will put it in order. The only caveat we want to do is two sorted. Fine. I will deal with you later. To do switch to sorted. All right. So, if A is greater than B, and we also want to say we're always going to lower priority sort if B, if there's no B, then we do a thing, and that thing will be -1. I don't know if it's gonna like that or not, but we go into here. There we go. But it didn't sort it right. Oh, these are to-dos. So B dot finished at, A dot finished at, and B dot finished at. There we go. The order that is a little bit wonky, but like I don't really care that much as long as they whoa. That check thing got real weird. Somehow I thought it oh, maybe because they're all checked and then it said all I'm not quite sure what happened. But we'll file that in yeah. Oh yeah. There you go. Yeah, so when I check it now, it's setting both of those. So it's that in place sorting, I think. That is wholly frustrating. So we'll just do this. Welp. Things may be odd. Yeah. It's when you check any of them. Let's put it to do. It's not my sort. It's not my sort. It's not my sort logic. It is when I am doing this. Because right here we're setting the finished at. If it doesn't have one, it just fills all of them in. So can we do a diff or something to check which to see which were checked to set the date and to do. There we go. Van Living Cho, nice. Just finishing up here. Need to check based on ID. Yeah, something like that. But like I'm operating with the selection, which comes from React Aria. I don't know that it gives us that. So like this is gonna be one of those, I need to look at the library and figure out what they're doing to see if we can get a diff. Or like pass an ID or something. Because I mean, right now we're passing in the selection, but like the, that's the component library doing that. Okay, so this is adding one. But here is on selection change. Like I'm getting a selection. That's all I'm getting. Keys. So when the selection changes, it's just giving me the updated selection. So I think what I end up doing is I'm passing in the selected keys. So it should be controlled component. I'm gonna have to see if there's a better API than just on selection change. Because I mean, I think basically what you're saying, Rithvik, is we need a key. We need some sort of diff to understand like what was clicked, and then we can pass that along to here and only change that one. Because right now what I'm doing is I'm looping over that whole selection that they gave us, which is it got the job done. Clearly, it's not going to, complete the job. we met objective 1, but it breaks objective 2. So lovely. That's what the to-do items are for. I guess we could here. Let's pop that open real quick. What do these look like? I don't think we have too many. Okay, maybe we do. This one we did. We fixed this one. You can go away and fix the clear. Yep, that's fine. To sorted. Yep, that makes sense. We've got a bunch of places where we have hard-coded file names, and we want to make those user input based. I don't think we actually need to do this. We are just generically saving every file at the moment. Handle removal of files. This API isn't actually called, so I don't think that matters that much. We did this. We figured out logic for if it's checked or not. Yeah, I had this note last time. I don't know. For some reason, if that errors, it doesn't actually throw the error. So there's some internal catch or something that's happening. Yeah, the file list stuff, because we're doing it based on a default file name, which has it has a separator. Functionally, they seem to work fine right now. So, well, we were talking WebSockets. Yep. Okay, cool. We're getting there. We're getting there. We will do the. I'll either figure out that ID thing offline. I might just figure it out offline because it's going to be looking at the component library, which isn't terribly valuable as far as learning goes. I just need to figure out how we can get an ID, and then that'll be done. And then we've got multiple files. We do want to do, can we more directly only update files which have changed states? So right now we're blindly saving every file. I mean, honestly, probably not going to notice the difference. So this is a to-do that might stick around for some time. We're just generically saving all of them, which it's not that much file. Like the file content is very small, and we're probably only going to have 4, 5, 6 of them. So like, well, and we're writing and closing them, so it's not like they're sticking around in state with an open file handle. Probably fine. So we fix this the key thing, and then I think WebSockets. Wire up some WebSockets. Definitely not a today thing though. I'm both brain is done. We've gone for what, 3.5 hours now? I need to actually get a little work done. And next time, I guess. I'm gonna try to get the next stream scheduled. I did this one late. But we'll do next week, we'll do Laurel.dev, I think it is. That's a local first or CRDT library, I guess is probably a better way to say that. And yeah, one day at a time. So we'll do Laurel next week, Tuesday. And then I think my schedule is fine for the following week. And we'll try to get the WebSockets hooked up. I should have maybe some more decisions or thoughts on how it makes sense to wire up the WebSockets at that point. I don't know if we'll have it in place, but maybe we can just play around with it and at least drop some snippets and get it working. And the main reason would be we're saving this unfinished state or this finished at state. I actually want to get that directly from OBS, which is my streaming software, which knows how long I've been streaming. So we'll, instead of giving me a date timestamp, I can get the like, it's been 20 minutes. It's been 3.5 hours. So that'll save me a little bit of math. Is the big part of it. But we have to wire WebSockets, so it's a little bit of work just to save a little bit of math. So we can probably roll with what we have today, and hopefully I get stuff buttoned up enough that we start using it for next week. Speaking of next week, though, Tuesday. We'll see you next Tuesday, same time. Have a great rest of your week. Keep on experimenting, everybody. Bye.